All right. Good morning, everyone. Hope everyone's second semester is off to a good start. We're going to go ahead and get rolling here this morning with our January webinar. And you can see the agenda here for the topics that we kind of plan to cover at a high level on today's discussion. We'll take a look at the calendar here first, and then, as we always do, end up kind of touching on a lot of the subjects that are upcoming. But we got the reserve grants out actually in December, so before January, and then working on our federal report in advance of the January 31st deadline. So Chris is going to talk a little bit about where things stand at the state level there. For reporting on all of our federal indicators. And then, of course, we kind of a narrative portion that we do as well each year on how we're utilizing discretionary Perkins funding and then other required usages of the Perkins grants. Some other items upcoming here is Spring Count Day we'll talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the CLNA. We're rounding into the home stretch with the CLNA due on March 1st, and then the local application following that. And then some other topics that we will be covering throughout the webinar as well. All right, so I'm going to let Laura lead off here today, and she's going to start with just kind of talking about the reserve grant a little bit more. I know we held a separate session for those who were awarded the grant, but she's just going to go over a few things here.
Good morning. Yeah, a few details about the reserve grant. We distributed $3 million this year, and so I just shared a breakdown of where those funds came from. We had about $1 million we recovered from 24, and that was from a variety of places, a part of which was the balance on your basic distribution. So any funds that did not get spent in that distribution got rolled into reserve. The $2 million is the initial budget that we had out of this FY25 grant. So I think that's more than we probably have distributed in the past by quite an amount. We had a lot of very strong applications. We awarded 31 grants. 24 of those were to secondary districts and 7 were to post-secondary campuses. And I think we had almost 50 applications, 45 maybe. And so we did try to award as many as possible. I did mention in the webinar for those who were awarded a grant, we really tried to stretch, even though it was a large amount of money, we really tried to stretch the funds. So there were probably more partially funded awards than in past. We would love feedback on how that works for you. We have talked internally about some complications of getting your grant partially funded and then having to select or be told what is not funded. So feedback is always appreciated. Send me an email if you have questions about how the money was distributed, but I shared a little bit of that in the award webinar. And then I am just a little bit of a data nerd, and I felt that this round was really strong. And so I went back to just kind of find some evidence of that. In 23-24, that was the first round of applications that I was here for. And so this year, the number of applications received was almost double. And so I think that hopefully results in strong use of the funds. And we were able to therefore distribute more money to that project. And then the overall scores, that's a little bit of a different data set, right? We've got different folks perhaps scoring, but generally speaking, we internally felt that the applications were much stronger this year, and the scores showed that with an average increase of about 10%. If you did not receive an award and are wanting some feedback, You're welcome to reach out to me. I can give some broad feedback. There's one director kind of waiting on a response from me on that. But generally speaking, we either could not really find where you described the gap. You may have shared what the gap was and said, we have a gap. But this year we were really scoring based on what evidence was provided. We had 0 students complete the certification. We had 4 students attempt it and only 2 pass, and we need to do this to try to ramp that up, right? So we were really looking for numbers and data and a baseline for which you could report on if you received the funds. So it was maybe a general statement. We really need to work on this. We need more women in this program, but we didn't have any numbers or data, and that's really what we requested. And then the second thing I noticed was there may have been some good data and a good plan, but the items requested did not seem to connect to improving that data. So I'm trying to think of an example. I'll just make one up. We are going to improve our non-traditional enrollment in welding. We would like to recruit more women in welding. And then what we're going to do is we're going to buy a welder, right? And so, yes, a welder is needed for welding. And we know that you are spending a lot of money on welding supplies and that this reserve grant would help that. But we were in the scoring really looking for, is that item, is that activity really going to bring women into the program? And so that's where scores for those who weren't awarded differentiated with some of the ones that were. I would love to take any questions you all have on that. I don't mind giving you feedback if you would like to talk more about your particular application. We would love to see those continue to come in and the scores continue to go up. So we just really loved reviewing those, talking about what you were planning, and excited to see the results of those.
Yeah, and maybe I'll just say there that to that last point that Laura had made, certainly one of the things, I mean, it's a small portion in the rubric, but it's something that we end up talking about too, and we'll continue to do so as we, this is really, yeah, we've dedicated more funding in this area, more people have been applying in the last couple of years. So one thing that we will be thinking about on a year-to-year basis is if you have received a grant in the prior cycle. And so just maybe emphasize again that point of if you applied and you did not receive the grant, would encourage you to come back at it again the following year, and probably at some point during that cycle, try to get some feedback as to what it could look like for you to sharpen what you're applying for, whether you want to choose the same thing again or choose something differently.
Just a couple of details about the CLNA. So it's January 8th. We will have another webinar in February. And so we've got, this one, the next one, and then the deadline. So we will just start ramping up our conversation about the CLNA. So just a reminder, the deadline is March 1st. You have probably some stakeholder meetings coming up. We have a general slide template we can attach in the follow-up email. But just a reminder, those are your meetings where you are presenting your findings and plans to your stakeholders. So we also encourage you to use your own branded slides. So this is just, if you need something to get your presentation started, we had someone request that, and then, can share it more widely. And then the process, if you are new, it would be important for you to know the process of completing your CLNA and then completing your local application. So your CLNA will be submitted by March 1st. Our team will complete a review, and then we will provide feedback. We're going to look for things that you have planned with Perkins that are not allowable, or any other things that we think might be in conflict with the language of the grant, right? So just mostly compliance review, or if we think there's something that could strengthen your local application, as a connection. So as a reminder, all of your funds that you utilize for Perkins have to be shown as a need in your CLNA. So we're just going to try to help with language to make sure that the things that you want to do in your local application would be allowable because the need has been shown. The goals, we will be looking pretty closely at the goals. Are they SMART goals? Are they measurable? Can you track growth and progress towards that goal? And so we will probably give some goal feedback as well. So hopefully that, and we'll talk more about submission next month, but hopefully as you're developing your final drafts and getting ready to submit, you can take a couple extra looks at those goals and make sure that they are in kind of a SMART format. And then we're going to give feedback and come back to you with some things that we might recommend or suggest, or we might say like, this looks great, go ahead and work on submitting your local application. And then there's a little bit of an overlap. So we plan to open the local application on February 14th. That's the same date we did last year. So for those who submitted the CLNA prior to March 1st, we will review in the order you submit. And then there is a possibility that you would be able to start that local application in February. So we want to go ahead and open that up. But you won't be able to submit your local application until your CLNA has been reviewed. And then that's the same way. So if you're a seasoned director and this is not your first CLNA round, that's the same way we did it, but there are a lot of new directors on the call. And we will talk more about this in the new director webinar next month. We'll probably spend most of the time on the CLNA. And then, yeah, like I said, we'll talk about it more next month in the webinar. And there will be a little bit of overlap in the timing. I didn't mean to talk that long. I thought we'll get 2 seconds out of the way, but yeah, reach out if you have questions.
All right, anything for Laura before we kind of move on to the next section?
Okay, thank you.
All right, I'm going to turn it over to Chris to talk about wrapping up the federal indicator reports and then some other data items.
All right, so I think don't really need this slide. Can we skip to this one? I think let's go through. All right, so this is what we're looking at so far. So the report's due at the end of January. The US DOE. We are, I'd say, a little bit later than typical, but this is where we're at right now. So if you look at these are all the indicators. I can go through each one. So 1S1 and 1S2 are the two graduation indicators. 1S1 is the 4-year and 1S2 is the 5-year. Those two we don't have. We're waiting on that from DOE. So that's we don't have those two yet. 2S1, 2S2, and 2S3 are the academic ones. That's English, math, and science. So you'll see the results for those. The left-hand part is the 24, 25, is the one we're doing right now. You see it's 41.5 is our actual for 2S1. 2S2 is 15.66 and 2S3 is 21.44. You see the ones that are highlighted in red or that have in the red box, that means as a state, we failed to meet 90%. And so you see the 90% of our goal is the cell just to the left. And the DPL column, that's your goal. So that's the state goal in this case. So we only have to meet 90%. That goes the same for locals. You have to meet 90% of your level. So as a state, the only two that we have failed are 2S2 and 2S3. So we have to do improvement plans on those as a state. The rest of them so far we're okay so far. The 3S1 is the other one that's not done yet. So the yellow boxes are not complete. You can see where we are now. on 3S1. We're still working through a couple of issues with the post-secondary match. So our goal was 86%. The 77.4 is 90%, and we're above it at 83. So I think we're going to be okay on that one, again, as a state. The last ones, 4S1 is non-traditional concentration. On that one, the state goal is 42. We're at 41, so we almost meet the actual goal. So we're good there. Then 5S1, 5S2, 5S3, these are very important ones. The 5S1 is the credentials. So this would be college degrees and certificates and industry certifications. So our goal is 20%, and we are at 21.87. On 5S2, which is dual credit, our goal is 35, and we are at 34. And 5S3, work-based learning, the goal is 21, we're at 21.86. So we did very well on those. We did a very good job of setting our goals on those, I think. So, so those are good. And you can see we have, so you can compare to last year. We have the goal and the actual, but then over on the far right, you can see if we did better or worse than last year. So on 2S2 and 2S3, we've gone down, and 4S1 went down a little bit. The rest of them are all better. So yeah, so that's what that is.
I think Audrey chat, I think you were commenting on 2S2 and 2S3. That is a good question. And since we were just kind of finalizing this at first, I don't think she was asking about how that compares to the broader full TOE population.
Yeah, I have not checked it yet.
We'll check that, and with several of these things, we'll kind of be, now that we're getting it finalized, we'll work on like some of these we'll put into more of like our one-pager thing for the February event that we've done the last couple of years, and then yeah, on some of the other ones too, we will most definitely, yeah, we recognize that aspect of those indicators. And there has been a lot of fluctuation at the state level on those because of the adjustments in the last few years as to what test is being used and that kind of thing. So it's been hard to set a goal.
That also will be in the dashboard reports. So once we get all this stuff finalized and snapshotted, we'll produce the dashboard reports, which has a whole lot of data in it for each district. I think it has the comparison for those and for the graduation. So I think that stuff will be in there. So
maybe I would just want to emphasize particularly the 5S1. I think, you know, the bottom three are the ones we tend to focus on the most, but they're also pretty hard to move on a year-to-year basis. And so, you know, even though a 2% gain doesn't necessarily seem hugely significant, I think in particular the 5S1 ongoing uptick there is something we were really excited to see. The other thing that would be important here, and we'll share an exact number as we get things finalized, but the overall concentrator number that then is the percentages are all being pulled from is up pretty significantly. So each year we're kind of having a broader and broader pool of students.
yeah, and I usually put together a small, it used to be a lot larger, but I'll put together a small couple slides that has some of this stuff in it, and we'll share it out. So, okay. So, having said that, all of you now can go in and start running. So if you want to run your local results, the ones that are finished, you can now run, and you should run snapshot on yours. If you want to see how you did, just go run the report on the ones that are finished and make sure you choose the snapshot version. That'll show you what for you was included in the state final numbers. So yeah, so that's that. Any other questions about the indicators and stuff? There'll be more to come. Maybe by next week, I can share a little bit more at the big meeting. Okay, so I guess I'm gonna go ahead and skip down to the 90% rule, and then I'll go back up. So the third bullet down there, the 90% rule. So that's, again, for you guys locally, you can look at your DPL or your, we used to call AUL, your goal, and determine what 90% of that is, and then that's what you have to meet. So if you're wondering if you're meeting or not, you can tell that way. If you do not meet 90%, for those of you who have been around, you'll know we have to do what are called interim improvement plans, and that will happen very quickly. So as soon as we get stuff finalized, we will begin to put those together and get that stuff sent out. We'll send out instructions, and we'll also do a webinar just to quickly go through. It'll be short to go through how you do those. Keep in mind the interim ones are, what are you going to do for the remainder of the current school year to try to improve? And then you'll have to do improvement plans on the same ones when you do your local application. And that'll be a larger, for the whole next school year. So if there's money to be spent on something you're doing, then you put that into next year's plan. But we can talk more about things I think maybe how you could do interim plans and stuff like that. We can talk about that when we do the webinar on those. So, okay, so that's kind of all about the indicators. I'll go back to the top. So the Data Explorer, we've just added a couple things to it. The first thing on the approved certification screen, we have now added the credentials of value. So there's a column. I may move the column over to the left, but right now it's over to the far right on the screen. And you can see there's nothing in there yet because I don't have the up-to-date scores. But once we get those, the COV score will show up in that last column. Also at the top, you can now set a filter if you want to see only the ones that are on the COV list. You'll be able to, you can click on that and see just those. That doesn't work right now because if you click it now, it only looks at the ones that have a COV score. So right now, none of them do. So it won't bring up anything. But once those are in there, which should be very soon, then you'll be able to filter on it and see all that stuff. So also in the browse area where you can browse pathways and browse courses, there is now where you can search at the top of the screen. You can now also filter on, if you want to look at a specific school or a specific like region or something, you can look at those and filter and see what programs are offered at this school or or within this region or county. I can't remember what all the options are, but so if you want to know, hey, this school that is close to us or the similar type of school, what programs are they offering? You can see all that stuff. So that is in there also. You can see it on the programs and on the courses. So those are the additions to Data Explorer right this second. There's a few more things that are coming soon, and we can talk about those later. So, okay. So right before we went on vacation, before Christmas, Jed sent out an email to everyone that had some information on we created a work-based learning import. So initially, the main use of that was going to be for people who don't necessarily do CTE or even non-CTE students that are in work-based learning, that they could import that stuff into Inters so that it could be counted for seals and whatever else comes. Then we decided to make it work so everybody could use it. If you want to add hours in work-based learning or add employers for courses that you already created enrollments in. All the instructions are within that stuff that Jed sent out. We have sent it to only directors and Inters people at this point at the districts. At some point, if you guys could look at that, and if there's any feedback you could give us about things we might be able to say different ways or do in different ways that would help your high schools that don't do this all the time, or would help you to maybe deal with those people when they start trying to get that stuff put in. Please send any questions or any feedback you have on that to us as soon as you can, because we do need to get that sent out because people are asking. So we just wanted to make sure there was nothing that you guys could tell us that we could do better before it goes out. So just keep that in mind. If you have time to look at it, or if someone's already looked at it, let us know what your thoughts are. Also, the adoption forms for 26, 27, we've had people asking about that. I will roll those over in the next 2 weeks for sure. So all the 25, 26 ones will get rolled over to 26, 27. So whatever your 25, 26 ones looks like, that's what it's going to be. So then you can go and edit the 26, 27 to make it correct when the time comes. But that'll be done in the next couple of weeks, and we'll send an email out when it's done, so you'll know that. And the last update that I'm sure everyone's going to be super excited about is spring count. The date is February 2nd, because I think the 1st is like a Sunday. So February 2nd is the spring count day. So soon we'll be sending out the instructions on that. Nothing, I don't believe anything's really changed since last year, but we will send that stuff out. So just be aware and remember that is coming very soon. So any other questions for me?
All right, seeing none, we will move along here. I feel like we've already gone through a lot, but we got a decent more to go here. So, all right, so we held the kind of that short, we didn't record it or anything, but short meeting in mid-December after the funding memo was approved. So don't have a lot more to share here, but just, by now, I'm sure everyone knows that the new funding memo was approved in December, utilizing we were utilizing the top jobs data and did an update to the crosswalk. And so we had talked at numerous points throughout the year that there was likely going to be a little bit more changes, or a decent amount more changes than have occurred the last couple of years, particularly last year, right? The memo was basically the exact same as the year before, because the procedures were not really rerun, because we were going to have this new top jobs data coming, and for a variety of different dynamics that were at play. So, the changes are all pretty spelled out in the change memo that goes along with the funding memo. A few of you have reached out with individual questions on particular programs, and we're happy to share to what level we can as to some of the things that might been at play with a particular change. I will, I feel like I said this a little bit in December, but there were, we were starting from a place that over 60% of the programs were in the high value category going into the process, right? And so I think we knew that going into utilizing the updated process, that running the data was probably not going to reflect that, and that was certainly true in the first process. Through a variety of different conversations, we pared down the changes a decent amount, but there were still a decent amount of changes in the memo this year. So just want to kind of say that there. I know others have reached out about a couple different conversations maybe upcoming on understanding the top jobs data to a deeper level, or some other aspects, and we're happy to continue to engage on those conversations moving forward. A couple other changes on there. I just realized this is wrong, but it's PCC is now eligible for funding at the 7th grade level, not the 8th grade level. Is already eligible at the 8th grade level. So that is one change. I've got a couple questions on that. If you have questions on that, let us know from a procedural aspect, but should be pretty straightforward. You can run PCC in 7th grade now for funding, which is something that we had gotten a decent amount of inquiries about over the, particularly since the new diploma had passed. So brought it up in conversations with leadership, and that was a change that was desired to move forward on. So we did so. And then a couple policy clarifications in there, including just a more formalizing what we have consistently shared regarding being in one, if you're in one pathway, you can do 6 credits in 1 year. You can do more credits than that in a work-based learning course, or they could be in a different pathway. But functionally speaking, that means that a student cannot be in principles A, B, and the capstone in 1 year. That's not occurring a lot, but it's not occurring 0 students either when we ran the data. So that's a policy that we've shared a lot. We've put it in presentations, et cetera, but it has not been blocked for funding if a student was in more than 6 credits within a pathway. So just want to make sure that everyone is aware of that. That is in the memo in a formal way now, and because it is, it will be implemented in enters as such. So if you do have a student next year in more than 6 credits within one pathway, you would get flagged for that. Okay, and then a little bit about appeals. We are still working out some procedural elements here. And before I say anything here, I will just say that because we're talking about appeals for a second here, the legislative and the funding memo. The legislative session has kicked off, as I'm sure you know. In one of the things that we highly expect to occur, which is just a conforming change, basically, is that the appeals process and the funding memo will be officially transferred to our agency. Those in legislative code right now are at the Department of Workforce Development. Particularly this year, our team pretty much handled both of those items, but those will be formally moving to the commission and our team moving forward. So that's in one of Representative Baining's education bills that has like a variety of different topics in it, and received a first hearing yesterday. But on appeals, we are thinking through that process. We need to have a couple more we need to have a conversation with DWD on it. At this point, and I think I would say that we are happy to receive feedback on this particular aspect, well, and more broadly, but we do not have a ton of insight of how the exact specifics were done within Gateway. In talking about this internally, obviously we don't use Gateway for anything else on our team, and so our inclination is to not do appeals through Gateway in whatever fashion that they are exactly executed this year. If you have a perspective on that, welcome that, but we would likely be trying to figure out some sort of process to do them within enters and not within Gateway. Other items on this would be that the top jobs data that we utilize for the funding memo is available by region. And we will be working to figure out how to, best make that as clearly available as possible to ensure that we all have a shared understanding of the regional data that would be utilized for the appeals process. Obviously, the top jobs data is just the data for each individual occupation, right? But at the very least, we'll be ensuring that we have clearly communicated how you can locate that regional data. So that's another piece of this. Another piece I think is related to what Audra just put in here. Yes. So the legislative code requires that these be submitted by school corporations. But I don't necessarily, in talking about this, I would not read it at, I think we can come up with a process where you can apply on behalf of school corporations in your district. And so we're going to do a little checking on that. But I don't think the legislative code is limiting to the extent that each individual superintendent should have to sign off. But we'll do a little more checking on that, ensure we're on good standing there. But we would like to try to come up with a process where you could apply on behalf of multiple school corporations within your district. Those were the main things I think we're going to hit on at this point. You know, we will when we open up the process, whenever we get there, and we'll try to share a little bit more probably in February, and then open up the process shortly after that. You know, like I said, we'll make the data as point you to the data, share the regional data, and likely emphasize, as we did this last cycle, that absent the regional data reflecting a change in the funding level, it's unlikely that an appeal would be approved. So we'll be as straightforward as we can on that, try to make the data as available as possible, and then set up a process from there. Okay, questions, comments on appeals right now, or yeah, and Aaron's question is kind of to, I guess, my last statement there. I would say closer to we want to ensure as much consistency as possible, and I think that means leaning on the regional data heavily, and because anything beyond that tends to get into more of a anecdotal observation or one person's opinion, or it just could be one person's opinion on our side, or whatever the case might be. So for the most part, we will try to try to emphasize whatever the regional data is reflecting, the regional data from whatever we utilized for the state funding memo. We can think about the supplementary data sources. That's probably something. I mean, we will have some sort of component of you can share any additional information that you so choose. So, and then the pool of directors in the Perkins region submit together. I mean, that's kind of another level up from having the director submit on behalf of the corporations. That's a good question. We'll think about that. To Brittany's point, and this is, I think, before we do this too, we will continue to try to share a little bit more on the funding memo. The top jobs, I think what is being referenced there is the top jobs data emphasizes using employment postings quite a bit, but because of what I think Brittany is referencing there is, some folks had brought up concerns about discrepancies within industries or occupations in the prevalence of employment postings. And so we did utilize, in the funding memo process, we still utilized posting data, but we also incorporated actual employment data from DWD. So like the actual number of individuals employed in that occupation within the state. And that data, we're doing that within the COV process as well. Again, because of kind of this aspect of the top jobs data that some folks had brought up when it was initially unveiled. So things like that, working to address through the overall data process. And so if you are, if you have items like that you are wondering about through in terms of the top jobs data, we're happy to take that under consideration. All right, that was quite a bit on that. If you have items that you want to bring forward or want us to consider as we try to get the appeals process up and running here in the next month or two, do certainly let us know. Then I wanted to spend a little bit of time on the credential completion grant this time. We'll talk more about the certification reimbursement process. We'll save that for another time, but most of you are used to that over the last couple of years, or if you're new, we've shared a little bit about that, but that's been executed the last couple of years, and it's not going to change substantially this year. The credential completion grant was new in 2023. And when I brought this up the last couple of times, I just don't think this is on everyone's radar, and through no fault of your own, because it really has not been discussed much in the last couple of years. So the grant was put in place in 2023, and then because it was put in place in conjunction with the CSA program in 2023. And there's, it was kind of a component of the CSA program, but it's also broader than that in awards funding for the earning of credentials. So it has a $5 million cap. And this is really going to be the first year that we're fully operationalizing this. And mostly that is because there is actually the credentials of value list now, and we can use that to then execute this grant. So I put a memo in here from last year of kind of just, you can read it if you want, but that's how it was done last year. They used this very small list of credentials that was like an early version of the credentials of value list that was never made public. And so a pretty small amount of money went to this the last couple of years. But now that we have a credentials of value list, the desire is to, okay, let's fully operationalize this grant. So it's a $5 million cap. So we will be awarding funding to corporations later this spring for credentials earned during the 24-25 school year. So whereas with industry certification reimbursement, right, it's reimbursing you whether the student passed or failed. This is for credentials earned during the 24-25 school year. And we'll be utilizing the credentials of value list, the existing list that has been published already from last spring. We are very close to exactly finalizing the eligibility. What I can say right now would be that anything that is a 3.0 or above will for sure be eligible for this grant. And so we're just kind of working through a few different options with that $5 million cap to exactly land on the eligibility criteria. But that's what you can anticipate coming within the next 2 months. This will go to, I think this is also, this will go to the, well, we just said it's good, or the homework. Yeah.
Knowledge. I haven't been taught.
Yeah, let me, yeah, I realized as I was saying that, I do not believe that the legislative language does not, speak to the home or conducting aspect of this grant. And there were a few things that we were talking through, to determine the best path forward there. So we will nail that down soon. But it will be paid out, likely in the like March, April timeframe. And in prior years, it's been paid out as a one lump sum. We'll have to see with DOE Finance if that is how they plan to execute the grant this year. And then this will be a yearly grant for right now, at least. And so you can be, and again, we'll be continuing to utilize the credentials of value list to execute this grant. So as you think about credentials that students are going to be earning this spring and things of that nature, the grant next year will be obviously based on credentials earned this year.
Sam, if I can ask real quickly, I put that in because we have 4 school districts, and with the performance grant, when it went to the sending schools, I still have 2 school districts refusing to send the funds to us as the conducting school that earned the certifications. And so if you are giving any kind of guidance, it's quite helpful. I don't know if I'm speaking for all career centers, but for me personally, working with other school districts, when funding is involved, it's not always easy to get the funds where they're supposed to be going due to the reimbursement. And then secondly, with the credentials of value, does this mean that in April, March, when the funds are going, that will also include the CTs and TCs and associate degree reimbursements?
Correct. Well, yeah. This grant, the eligible credentials will be, both the industry certification side of things and the CTs and TCs. The only post-secondary credential, the ICC and associate's degrees are not eligible for this because they're being funded out of that academic performance grant. But yes, any CTs or TCs, absent the ICC, which is technically a TC, would be eligible for this grant that meet the scoring criteria that we make public soon. And yes, it's certainly that the feedback you're sharing is certainly part of why we've moved to doing the certification reimbursement by conducting school for this upcoming year. There was at least one complicating factor of doing that for this grant, but we will land on that here soon, and then regardless of how we land, we will try to have some communication that speaks to who should be ultimately having the money for this process.
Thank you, Sam.
I guess, yeah, now that I think about it, the thing we were talking through was more like the certification reimbursement, right, is very like one entity is paying for it and it's at one time, right? With an earned credential, you could be taking, especially like if you're getting a CT, right? Like you could take a class at your home school and at the Career Center, and they both kind of combine together to get the credential, right? There's just a little bit more complicating factors here to earning a credential through a program when it's not just necessarily at one time. So that was one thing that as we're talking about this more, I recalled from a conversation a few weeks ago. But
so for us, though, like just to continue that vein, in that vein, for us as an early college CTE center, and I know there are others, when we have the CTE, that is all based on the
It's all
18 or
yours.
30 in your industry. So it is all coming from us.
Yeah, and certainly many would be
So just to say that,
be
yeah,
operating
sorry.
similarly. Yeah. Okay. Wanted to basically just make sure everyone is aware of this grant, has it on your radar, knows that it will be a decent amount of funding that will be coming out later this spring. As we nail down exact specifics here with the policy leads, we will share as such in the coming couple of weeks. All right, Lindsay, you're up.
Yay. Good morning, everyone. I just wanted to touch on a couple of programming updates. So our first is, you may have noticed in the funding memo and the change summary that we are adding 2 new digital technology pathways. So those will be reflected in the master pathways document that we'll be posting probably by the end of the month for 26-27. And that is the AI machine learning pathway, as well as the data analytics pathway. And then you will also see in the review document some course adjustments. Over the next couple of years, we'll be phasing out, I think it's really 2 courses in digital technology. So in the review document, we will essentially give 2 options for how to do a couple of those pathways. So if you have kids, currently in the process of some of those pathways, networking is one that comes to mind. We'll keep those courses for them to finish out that pathway, but we'll also include what the new structure will look like. So as you have new kids starting that pathway, you can start to transition to those new courses. And that is all just related to Ivy Tech is trying to streamline their programs so that really kids are taking essentially 2 different branches. All of the pathways will start with principles of computing, and then they'll either take this concentrator A and B or this concentrator A and B, and then there'll be a series of capstones that differentiate. So it really is some flexibility for students who might think they know they want to do cybersecurity. And then, by the time they've taken that concentrator B course, maybe they decided they wanted to do IT operations instead. So it'll be easy for them to make that switch. So you'll see those items reflected, but no courses will be removed for 26-27 related to that. That will likely start with 27-28. So that'll be visible in the review document as that starts to come out this spring. And then also a reminder for everyone that human and social services pathway will not be available for the 26-27 school year. We provided information on that in our August newsletter. So a few different options in there for students who are currently completing that pathway, including a waiver option for 26-27 if that is necessary for students who need to complete that pathway. So if you have specific questions about that or what you need to complete for students who will be utilizing that waiver, feel free to reach out to me or to our general inbox. And we're happy to answer those questions. Erin, I'm not sure I understand your question.
Sorry about that. As I heard you talking about it, it sounded like you're long-term going to phase out like networking and cybersecurity or push those in.
We're not phasing out the pathways. It will just be really that the concentrator sequence will be basically the same, and the pathways will differentiate at the capstone level. And that's just to align to what Ivy Tech is doing to streamline all of their programs. Yeah, so nothing going away, 2 programs being added. You might just see some adjustment of the order of some courses or some competencies, and then there'll be slowly some of those courses leaving to do that sort of single concentrator sequence. Does that make more sense?
Yeah.
It does,
And
thank
then,
you.
okay, yeah, perfect. Next is the CTD, the course titles and descriptions. Documents have been released, both the CTE portion and the IDOE portion. So the CTE portion is on our website. Both are on the DOE website if you want to go one place. And then also the companion document is on the DOE website as well. I believe the majority of the updates related to the course titles and descriptions have been made. So like adding those digital technology courses that I mentioned. So if you notice an issue or something doesn't seem right, please feel free to reach out again to me or the general inbox. I have the editing rights for the CTE portion if an update needs to be made if we made an error. So if you've been to that document, you know it is very large. So those mistakes can happen now and then. We have also added course descriptions to that document. So the far right column of each tab includes the course description from the 26-27 course titles and descriptions document. So our effort there to ease the number of documents that need to be utilized, especially for scheduling purposes. So the next piece then is the course eligibility memo. So in that companion document that's available, it currently lists courses that meet the various new diploma requirements. We are working on updating that and releasing it again, just so that there's a clear delineation of courses that the eligibility may have been added for 26-27, because with the companion document being updated regularly, we know it can get a little bit confusing of, has that always been the case? Is that only moving forward? Keeping track of those pieces. So trying to do that with that memo. And that will also reflect those courses that were under review in the original memo that was released last April. So that will be, those will be noted there. And we have designated them with a little new tag so that folks know that they have been added if that is the case. And we plan to release that memo this month. Hopefully next week's newsletter, we'll see what happens. But some notable updates that you'll see there is that the biomedical concentrator courses, the A and B course, will be designated as lab sciences. So that means those courses will meet that lab science requirement for the enrollment honors seal. We have added 5008 animal science as an additional science course, so it can meet that science requirement for the base diploma. And then the addition of both veterinary science and those new digital technology courses to the STEM focused list. So there may be a few other CTE updates, but I think those are some of the notable ones that were part of that courses under review process.
Just to kind of, I know that is kind of a lot of pieces there. Just to kind of summarize for myself and also maybe for others, like, and make sure you're just questions you might be getting from your counselors or whatever. So the course titles and descriptions was released as two separate documents this time. There's a couple of reasons for that, but moving forward, your counselor is pretty much using this companion document most likely, and they probably aren't even really looking at the course titles and descriptions. The companion document, kind of what Lindsay was saying, is it literally has everything in it. The course titles description literally just has the course and the description now, and we added all the description. It was like the only piece in the companion document that the companion document had everything else, but not the description. So we put the descriptions in. So that it's a big Excel document. It has everything they could ever want about course eligibility and credits and funding and all the things. So they are probably using that. That is fully updated for 26-27, except for these few last decisions that we were making on course eligibility, which we put out an initial version in April of here's course eligibility for the new diploma, right? And then we said, here's some things that are under review. And then of course, people have also said us, what about this course? Or why did you do this with this course? So it's not a ton of changes, but they're just a few changes that we are, well, we're gonna add this for this, add this for that, etc. So that's all done. We worked with the academics team at DOE and done our portion of CTE courses. So it should be ready to go. Like Lindsay said, hopefully goes out next week. And the course eligibility memo is really just taking a bunch of information that will be in the companion document, all the different eligible courses, and putting it into a nice little memo that if someone just wants to look at what are all the STEM courses, what are all the science courses, this is the memo for that. And then we've particularly added a section about the enrollment seal because there's been some confusion with that seal in particular has some different categories: science, social studies, math, and so we've made more clear what all the eligible courses are for that enrollment and enrollment plus seal. So that's kind of what all that is. If you are receiving questions from counselors or trying to look up something yourself, but those are kind of the important things that I would focus on. I think we have a few questions here.
Yeah.
I'll let you go.
Okay, yeah. So Christy, the companion document link says 2425. I will get with DOE to update that, but it is a live document. So it is not like a snapshot of what the case was. It was just released in 2425 originally, but that document is live. So I will get with them about just removing those dates or updating those years. But there is only one companion document, and it is the live document. And then Hillary, the waiver process for students in phase out. So yeah, we have not talked about using the waiver for the capstone. But yes, you would start to transition students to social and community services. And then if you had a student maybe who like in human and social services had completed the concentrator A, but needed to complete B to earn concentrator status, that would be what the waiver is for 26, 27.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, my question is, I don't see the capstone available at all in the course titles.
Because
Yeah,
the whole
but I have 30 first-year students.
yeah, so you can use, but okay. Yeah, quite honestly, nobody else has asked about the capstone. So which is, I think, well, I would just say it speaks to how the program was being executed in a lot of cases. But you can, yeah, let's engage on a waiver. We can do a waiver, but with any other waiver, we've only allowed 2 credits of the special topics course for funding. So that is likely what we would have to do there. I don't know if they're trying to take it, how many credits they're trying to take it, the capstone for. But.
Yeah, they're doing 3 periods and they are going out to some behavioral facilities in the community too. We have about 4 kids.
Okay. Well, then maybe
currently.
we could, okay. Well, we may be able to do like a waiver for it and then also put them in a, let's talk about it, because maybe that could be through work-based learning or something. That portion, but okay, we'll follow up with you on that.
Okay, thanks.
All right. Here, I'll kick this off for a second.
Okay.
But
hey, Sam, before we go real
yes.
quick, I'm asking about the new 3524 Intro to Public Safety or Public Service. We're trying to find what the licensing requirement is. It a year-long class, semester-long class? And we're not able to find anything. Do you guys have any insights? Send me in the right direction anywhere.
Yeah, that I don't, on the licensing requirement, I don't think that's been added to the, but I would anticipate the licensing requirement for that course would be very broad. But I will,
But yet
I'll have to check what the, if it's, I don't think it's been added to the kind of the DOE section of the, that's the assignment code.
and do we know if it's a 1 semester or 2 semester?
I do not, so.
It's a
I'm not-
DOE course, so.
I'm not aware of it. I do not know. So if it doesn't say,
I'm just saying, I can't find it anywhere on anything is what I'm asking. That's what I'm saying. I know you guys are having meetings and we're all in
Yeah.
one big happy camp now, right?
yeah, I mean,
But if you
Okay.
guys could find that out in your next meeting, like, or send it out where this is, I'm getting hit hard on it pretty hard about what the requirement is. Is it a 1 semester? Is it a 2 semester? And none of us can find it. Counselors can't seem to find it, anybody.
okay, yeah, we'll
Thank you.
we'll ask someone about that too. Yeah, what Lindsay put in there is really the only information that I'm aware of that's been shared, which I know does not answer any of your questions. Okay, a couple of things here that are just recent completed things.
Oh, I will say, it looks like I just pulled up the companion document, Jean, and it does look like it is listed as a single credit course. So that's all I know right now, but that answers one question, I believe, at least that you had. So I will try to track down the assignment codes information, but it looks like it's intended to be a 1 credit course. I don't know if that means it could be taught for 2 semesters, but I'll try to find that out as well.
Thank you. I could have a long conversation about this whole thing on that class and how our classes don't count because of the rigor we have, same as our computer science classes, but I won't take up our space and time. So Happy New Year, everybody.
Yeah, I'll just say I anticipate I wouldn't necessarily disagree with anything you would potentially say, but we're still working on that. Okay. Recently completed things, career guide out, online version, print copies. We're going to bring a bunch of them to the January meeting. Unless you don't want them, everyone gets about 50 copies of the career guide. So we'll have boxes and things that we'll pass out as many people as come to IACTED next week, and then we'll keep passing them out at other ways if you're not there. The workplace specialist program. Many of you know that we kind of conducted an outside third-party review of the program over the last 6 to 8 months through an entity called Marzana Research. They recently have submitted their report to us. A lot of you participated in interviews or surveys, or you helped us by sharing out the information with your instructors, that kind of thing. They got a lot of survey responses. They did a good number of interviews, that kind of thing. We were really pleased with kind of the level of engagement there was with it. They just submitted their report to us in mid-December. We've done an initial review. We just had a meeting with them last week. Plan to engage with Audra, Dr. Lazarus, some of the folks that are like most involved in the program first, kind of have a couple meetings, share the report, and then we will likely share it more broadly from there. Overall, I just want to say that overall, it was a very positive report regarding the program. And so we have no intentions of making any substantial change in terms of like partnering with someone other than Ball State or anything like that. So, but they also did have some good ideas in there, we thought, for potential tweaks and adjustments to improving the program. And so we will take those under consideration and figure out in consultation with you all and others how we might be able to make some good adjustments within the program. So that's completed. It's been something we, quite honestly, that Tony had wanted to do for many years, was kind of do a more thorough review of the program. I thought it was useful. It went well. And we'll be sharing more of that information in the coming weeks. Overall, that's something we're trying to do with just, things that we are spending a decent amount of money on that we've been engaged on over a year-to-year basis, particularly with some state requirements and things over the last couple of years. We often are being asked to justify more if we are doing the same thing every year in a non-competitive fashion in whatever the use of funds is. So this is the example of that. We're doing some analysis with interns right now. And we'll probably be thinking through other ways that we spend money and just kind of reviewing that over the coming years. All right, so that's that. And then do you want to share on the other one?
Yeah, so we also partnered with CIESD, the Central Indiana Education Service Center. That's a lot. To put together a unit. It's essentially 4 lessons, could be stretched to more, could be, broken down a little bit more if necessary, but a unit that deals with credential completion for the principal's courses. So 2 years ago, I believe maybe, we added career navigation standards to all of the principal's courses, and that includes creating a credential plan that sort of builds off the graduation plan that a lot of students do in middle school, right? And we know a credential, right, big part of the diploma now, obviously also a indicator for CTE. So it makes sense, right, that there would be some work with students to really figure out what is their plan. So those resources have just been finalized, and we are working on, converting things to PDF, et cetera, as needed, and getting those posted to our website. So we will be sharing either in a follow-up or in the next webinar, whenever those are completely ready to go, with you all to share with teachers that are teaching principals courses, and to share with schools that might be doing principals courses, prior to students coming to career centers for programs, et cetera. So appreciate you all helping us share those resources with folks. And it's part of our ongoing effort, my effort in my position to continue providing resources for CT educators. So if there's something that a lot of teachers are asking for, especially if it's something not content specific that would support all CT teachers, would love to hear from you, so that's something we maybe can consider contracting with someone if necessary to put some of those resources together. So
about a week-long curriculum, basically, that instructors could incorporate in a unit into their course. Not required, nothing like that, but a resource that will be available that we will get your way here soon. All right, I know we have used up a lot of time today, but I'm going to roll through a few things really quickly here on this upcoming slide. AFE, we'll be getting the nomination forms out soon. Event will be around the same time, at either the very end of April or the start of May. We are working with IACT to lock down that date. We will certainly let you know when we share out the forms. Phase 2 monitoring. Laura will be keeping folks updated who are part of that process. Right now, basically the stage is a lot of you have submitted all your information and we're reviewing that, and then we will select our site visits here for the spring sometime probably in February or something like that. And then some other folks, we've started some technical assistance with some other districts over this week. Some of you might be coming to the Chamber Work-Based Learning Conference. It might be sold out at this point, but if not, it may be a good thing to send somebody to or yourself. We will be doing a presentation there. Not necessarily a ton of new information, I don't think, but it'll just be good to continue talking through the work-based learning requirements of the new diploma. So that will be coming up here later in January. The Office of Work-Based Learning is running some sessions over the next few months on pre-apprenticeship. And so if that's something you're currently engaged with or would like to be more engaged with, we will include that in the follow-up. It'll just be like a flyer of 3 dates in the coming weeks, one like central, north, south. And so if that's something you're interested in attending, that is an upcoming opportunity. And then the school accountability model, I don't know, some of you may have started having conversations on this with your districts, but kind of how the diploma was probably the big thing in 2024. The school accountability model, I know I've started getting a good amount of questions about that as it's moved its way through the process in fall of 25. It will be it's kind of in the last round. It hasn't been voted on for final approval. I think that's happening in January, but not sure. But I guess the main thing I wanted to say there is, the model incorporates a lot of different elements, and it gets into the CTE space much more than previous models would have. And so, just probably a good thing to start familiarizing yourself with to some extent regarding the different components of that model moving forward, because but at least as of now, there is the plan is to move on that pretty quickly and begin doing school letter grades based off this new accountability model in the upcoming years. So we'll try to piece out some of after it gets finalized, we'll try to put together some information that speaks to some of the CTE elements, but just wanted to have that on folks' radar as well. Yeah, we can include that in the follow-up. I think there is a page on DOE's website that has like the first version, the latest version, et cetera. So we'll include that in the follow-up.
One other item to add, if you have new or newer work-based learning coordinators or counselors, Sam and I will be presenting next Tuesday in the Cell Lunch and Learn series on work-based learning. So it'll be fairly similar to some presentations we've done before on work-based learning, but if you have new folks coming on board or roles changing, might be a good thing for them to listen in on.
All right, that's what we have. Any last questions for us before we sign off today?
Sam, I'm going to ask again, and I know I've said this several times, but the work-based learning, the record keeping side of this, is there any, or will there be any consideration for a statewide program or system to keep track of all of this?
I don't have any new information to share there right now. I would say. I think I remember. I think we were emailing a month or so ago. We have considered some enhancements that we could do to inters, but due to some other dynamics with that this fall, we kind of put on hold bringing that back up. But depending on how a couple other things go, we may be able to resurface that conversation this semester. But the conversation had, again, and these are not super far along and none of this works quickly, has more been with, given that schools are partnering with a variety of different entities, how can the state try to communicate to those vendors what is ideally true about their platforms and the things that their platforms are able to do? And then how can the state share data back and forth with those entities? So that has been more where the conversation has been this fall, and contrast to earlier communication from, particularly from DOE, like early in the diploma process, about maybe doing a big RFP for one statewide platform that everyone would be encouraged to utilize.
Okay, I spent a large portion of my Christmas break listening to a few vendors, and I get that how difficult it is. I just hate to spend the money when or if the state is thinking they're going to do something. But the paperwork has got to be, we've got to find a simpler way to do it.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, feel free to, I certainly understand this is it's one of the top things that we've kind of all had conversations with you all about this semester. So, don't feel free to keep bringing it up. And I guess I would say if there are, it is more likely that we could identify some kind of targeted enhancements to enters to implement. And so to the extent that you have thoughts as to what that could look like, we had put together a proposal of sorts at some point last fall based on some feedback from directors. Then again, like I kind of said, we may be able to resurface that conversation, but just especially with enters, just to be quite frank, I mean, we're doing this whole feasibility study with how we can better integrate enters and data exchange. And then DWD has been working on an RFP process with enters for their platform moving forward. And so there just have been a variety of different kind of evolving dynamics that have made it hard to make substantial changes to our current product at the time. So,
would you be opposed if a group of interested directors kind of got together and had a discussion about like some of the quote unquote basics that we feel might be necessary if you were to integrate it into enters?
No, we would not be opposed to that. No.
Okay.
That would be totally, and it is, yes, it is always helpful if I can say this is a something that a group of 10 directors put together that has substantial input from the field. So, yep.
Okay. Thank you.
No, thanks for All right. Anything else?
Brandon asked any update on the release of COB.
Yes. And I think Kyle had an earlier comment in there. It should still be fairly close, but there were just we have more to work through with Ivy Tech than I originally was hoping for. And then in some of our internal conversations, we've been trying to figure out how to best maybe better lay out the list. So we've been working on that as we work through some things with Ivy Tech, but I would still hope to have the refreshed version out this month. Like I think I've said on that topic that like if there's something that's not on the list that you're trying to make a planning decision or something for next year, we have, you know, like with a few different entities, like with IQ or CC or ABC or something, we've sent them some language and said we're fine with them sharing with schools, like this is going to be added to the list, that kind of thing. Similar to like with course eligibility, that's almost done. We've worked with Project Lead the Way, who and said you're welcome to share this language with your participating schools that those courses are going to be added to the science course, that kind of thing. So if there's something specific that anyone has on something like that, where you know the item is shortly forthcoming, we're happy to sign off on a like this will occur statement. So. All right, thanks everyone. Hope the start of the semester goes well, and we will talk to you all soon.
Hi, Sam. I was pulled on a fire drill, of course, today. Are you guys sharing this shortly, the recording of the webinar?
Yes, we'll get the recording and some other those follow-ups by end of day tomorrow, we'll say.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a good day.
Thanks everyone. Yeah, bye.